Not all prisons have bars. Some look like love at first sight. Some start with flowers, promises, and soft words that melt your heart. And some tighten slowly, so slowly, that by the time you notice you cannot breathe anymore, it is almost too late. This is the story of Amina. 27 years old. 7 months pregnant. A woman who once believed she had married her protector, but who learned, too late, that she had married someone she needed protection from. This is her journey. Her fall. Her fear. And her courage to rise again. Amina met Jamal 2 years before the nightmare began, long before fear ever entered her vocabulary. It was during a crowded community outreach event in their neighborhood. The sun was high, children raced between tents with balloons tied to their wrists, music floated from portable speakers, and volunteers moved in every direction carrying trays of food and cartons of supplies. Amina had been helping for hours, her scarf damp with sweat, her arms sore from lifting boxes. She knelt to tie a child's shoelace when a shadow fell over her. When she stood up, he was there. Jamal. A clean haircut, trimmed beard, warm smile, an expression that didn't force itself, but arrived naturally, like good rain. His voice had a calmness that settled people instantly. Jamal, flashback. You look tired. Let me help with that box. He reached for the heavy carton she was struggling with and lifted it as if it weighed nothing. Amina blinked, partly surprised, partly impressed. He cracked a small joke about the box being heavier than his entire week, and even the children nearby giggled. People knew him. They called out his name when he passed. Older women tapped his arm affectionately, telling him he was a good young man. Community leaders nodded at him with approval. There was no arrogance in him then, he carried himself like someone confident, useful, and responsible. He seemed perfect. And in the beginning, he was. Jamal stayed near her the rest of the outreach, not pushy, just helpful, handing out water, picking up trash, teasing the kids who kept returning for extra snacks. Amina found herself watching him out of the corner of her eye more times than she'd admit. After the event, he approached her again. Not for her number. Not for attention. Just to ask if she got home safely every night, and whether she needed help carrying her bag to the bus stop. From that day on, everything moved slowly and beautifully. He sent thoughtful messages each morning. Good morning. Did you eat? Please don't forget to rest today. He surprised her at work with lunch, fresh, warm food in containers. He learned her favorite meals without asking. He laughed at her jokes, even the ones she didn't think were funny. He walked her home from church events, from the market, from her workplace, even when it meant staying out late. But he insisted every time. Jamal. It's not safe for you to walk alone. Allow me. He spoke gently. He never raised his voice. Not once. When Amina talked, he listened with full attention, hands folded, eyes steady, patience flowing from him like water. He made her feel noticed. Chosen. Protected. Within months, they were inseparable. Their names were spoken in pairs. People teased them about wedding dates. And eventually, when Jamal knelt with a ring during another community program, with cheers rising behind them, Amina didn't hesitate. She said yes with a smile as bright as the lights surrounding them. Everyone told her she was lucky. Her mother called him a blessing. Her friends envied the way he adored her. The community praised them as the perfect couple. But shortly after the wedding, subtle things began to shift. Nothing dramatic. Nothing loud. Just small shadows moving under the surface. At first, Jamal commented on her friends. Not directly. Never insulting. He spoke in a soft, concerned tone that felt protective rather than controlling. Jamal. Are you sure they have good intentions? I've watched them, they don't really support you. They influence your mood. You come back drained. They don't value you the way I do. These statements were framed as care, as love, as insight. Slowly, she stopped seeing them. She didn't even realize she had made the decision. It felt like something she chose on her own. Only later would she understand how gentle the push had been, and how easy it is to walk into isolation believing you're choosing it. Next came the finances. Jamal didn't storm in and take over. He framed it as responsibility. Jamal, I'm trying to build something big for us. Let me handle the spending. You don't need to stress about money, leave that to me. He took her salary, just to manage, and gave her allowances so small she sometimes felt embarrassed buying things for herself. But he would kiss her forehead and say, I'm planning for our future. Trust me. Then came his temper. Not every day. Not even every week. Just quick sparks, small outbursts over nothing. Sharp tones that made her blink twice. Overreactions that lasted only seconds. And afterward, he drowned her in apologies. Flowers. Long hugs. Tears in his voice. Jamal. I'm sorry. I lose myself because I love you too much. I'm under stress. I didn't mean it. You're the only one who understands me. Every apology made her feel guilty for being upset. Every explanation seemed to make sense. Every charm-filled moment erased the previous sparks. Until the night of the first incident. A quiet evening. A simple disagreement. A sudden shift in his tone. No details are necessary, only the silence that followed. The shock that froze her. The fear she tried to swallow. And Jamal falling apart afterward, acting devastated by his own actions. He held her shoulders, stuttering with emotion, promising never to repeat it. He cried. He begged. He held her hands like a man terrified of losing everything. She forgave him. Because she believed people could change. Because marriage required patience. Because she thought love could fix what was broken. But she didn't know. She had just taken her first step into the beginning of her darkest valley. When Amina found out she was pregnant, her heart swelled with a kind of hope she hadn't felt in months. She stood in the bathroom with the test in her hand, her breath trembling, eyes filling with quiet tears. For a moment, she forgot the tension, the whispers of fear, the uneasiness creeping into her home. All she saw was the future, a soft, innocent future growing inside her, untouched by the world's darkness. She imagined Jamal holding their child, smiling more, shouting less, becoming gentle again. She pictured him placing his palm on her belly, whispering prayers over their unborn child. She pictured a home filled with laughter instead of footsteps she feared. But instead, everything tightened. Everything changed. Jamal became even more controlling. He insisted she resign from her job immediately, not with discussion, not with care, but with finality. Jamal, I don't want unnecessary stress around you. Just stay home. Let me handle everything. At first, his words sounded protective. Amina even convinced herself it was love. But as weeks passed, it became clear it wasn't about protection. It was about control. About removing her independence piece by piece. He monitored everything, what she ate, when she rested, how long she showered, how long she spoke on the phone. Even a 5-minute conversation with her mother resulted in questions. Jamal. Who were you talking to? What were you discussing? Why didn't you call me first? He inspected her meals, as if waiting to catch her doing something wrong. He corrected how she sat, where she put her feet, how she carried her body. Nothing was ever right enough for him. Whenever she expressed discomfort or frustration, he didn't listen. He didn't soften. He attacked her with accusations. Jamal. So now you think you know more than me? You're raising your voice at me. You have no respect. None. The pattern repeated itself until she stopped speaking altogether, choosing silence over an argument she knew she wouldn't win. At family gatherings, she mastered the art of pretending. She wore long sleeves to hide the tension beneath her skin. She wore bright lipstick to distract from the shadows in her eyes. She wore a smile so rehearsed it felt like a mask molded onto her face. Her aunties told her she was glowing. Her cousins complimented her happiness. Everyone praised the beauty of pregnancy. But no one knew the glow was foundation. No one knew the happiness was practiced. No one knew the truth was suffocating her. At night, when Jamal slept soundly beside her, Amina lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Tears drifted down her temples silently, absorbed by the pillow. She placed both hands over her stomach, feeling the small fluttering movements within her. She whispered apologies to her unborn child, apologies for the tension in her body, for the fear she couldn't hide anymore, for the environment the baby was growing in. Amina, whispering in the dark. I'm sorry. I'm trying. I'm so sorry. She began doing something small, almost insignificant, but monumental for her. She started hiding money. It began with coins. Loose change Jamal tossed aside. A 500 naira note she found in her old handbag. A bundle of cash she managed to save from errands he sent her on. She hid it all inside an old lotion container, the kind no one ever checks, the kind that rattles quietly when moved. Every time she tucked a new note inside, her hands trembled. Not from guilt. From the fear of being caught. Deep inside. Beneath the layers of hope. Beneath the love she once felt. Beneath the excuses she told herself. She knew she might need it one day. The baby had changed everything. But not in the way she hoped. It had awakened her to a reality she could no longer deny. Amina was in danger. And she wasn't the only one. There was a second heartbeat depending on her now. It happened on a cloudy afternoon, one of those days where the sky carried a quiet heaviness. The air felt thick, almost warning. Amina was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of rice, humming a soft tune to keep herself calm. She had been careful all day. Careful with her words. Careful with her movements. Then the door opened. Jamal stepped inside earlier than usual. The moment she saw his face, her heartbeat shifted. His eyes were sharp. His posture stiff. His silence loud. She could feel the tension radiating from him before he even spoke. He dropped his bag so hard the floor vibrated. Amina froze. She recognized that kind of energy. She knew something was brewing beneath the surface. He stared at her for a long time, too long. Then he started questioning her about something small, insignificant. A comment she made earlier. A tone he didn't like. A look he claimed was disrespectful. Amina tried to explain calmly. She spoke softly, choosing every word with care, trying to avoid an explosion. But the gentler she spoke, the angrier he became. Jamal. Oh, so now you're arguing. So now you want to embarrass me. You think you're smart. You think you can control me. His voice grew louder. Sharper. Dangerous. He accused her of things she never thought of, twisting her words, creating offenses she never committed. Every sentence he threw at her was heavier than the last. And then he crossed a line. A line that can never be uncrossed. No details needed. Only the truth that Amina felt fear she had never known before. Fear not for herself alone, but for the life growing inside her. In that moment, standing there in her own home, Amina realized something devastating. If she stayed, she might not survive this. And neither would her child. Hours later, after the storm passed and the house grew quiet, Amina found herself sitting on the floor beside the bed. The room was dim. She hugged her knees tightly to her chest, trembling, not only from what happened, but from the clarity settling into her bones. She looked around the room. The walls she once decorated with love now felt like a trap. The wedding photos stared back at her, mocking her hope. The silence was deafening. She reached for her phone, desperate to call her mother, desperate to hear a familiar voice, desperate for help. But the phone wasn't there. She checked the drawers. The bedside table. Her handbags. Nothing. Jamal had taken it. The realization paralyzed her. No phone. No communication. No escape route. No one who even suspected the truth. Her breath shook as she whispered softly, brokenly. Amina, through tears. I have to leave, or he will destroy me, and my baby. Those words marked the beginning of her transformation. From that moment, every movement she made became quiet preparation. Every breath became strategy. Every heartbeat became survival. She wasn't just living anymore. She was planning her escape. And she knew. The next move she made would determine whether she lived to see her child born. Midnight carries a different kind of silence. It is not the peaceful sort found in calm homes or safe hearts. It is the silence that stands thick in the air, the kind that feels like another presence watching, listening, waiting. And on this night, it wrapped itself around Amina like a warning. Jamal slept deeply, sprawled across the bed, breathing in loud, uneven rhythms. He had come home angry, again, but exhaustion eventually dragged him into sleep. Amina watched him for a long moment, her hands trembling slightly as she held her belly, whispering to the tiny life inside. Amina, whispering. We are leaving tonight, my child. We are leaving before something terrible happens. She waited. 1 minute. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. She waited until she could predict the pattern of his breathing, until she was certain he wouldn't stir. Then she slowly pushed the blanket aside. Her feet touched the cold floor, and the chill ran through her like electricity. She listened again. His breathing remained steady. Step by step, she moved across the room. She avoided the loose floor tile she had learned over time could betray her with a sharp clicking sound. She avoided brushing the wardrobe door, which creaked if touched on the right side. She even held her breath when passing his shoes on the ground, afraid the slightest kick could make noise. Her heartbeat thudded so loudly in her chest she feared it alone would wake him. She made her way to the small shelf where she had hidden her savings, folded notes and coins inside an old lotion container. The lotion bottle felt heavier now, symbolic. Not just money. A lifeline. She pocketed it. Then her ID card. She didn't dare take clothes. She didn't dare open drawers. Anything could wake him. Anything could ruin everything. Barefoot, she moved to the living room. The moonlight seeped in through the curtains, faintly illuminating the furniture, each piece reminding her of a moment she had once believed was love. She paused at the front door. Her hand hovered over the lock. A flash of fear stabbed her chest. If it made noise. If he woke up. If he stood behind her. If he dragged her back. She closed her eyes. Turned the key, slowly, slowly. The lock clicked gently. For a second, she froze. Jamal didn't move. She opened the door and stepped outside. The cold night air slapped her skin, but she embraced it. It was the first honest sensation she had felt in months. She stepped off the porch, her feet sinking slightly into the damp earth. She walked fast, then faster, her hands covering her belly protectively. The street was dim, the street lights flickering occasionally. Every distant car engine made her jump. Every barking dog made her flinch. Every shadow felt like Jamal. She kept her eyes fixed ahead. She did not look back. By the time she reached the main road, her breath was unsteady. Her feet ached. Her legs burned. But she kept going. Because fear, when it transforms into survival, becomes fuel. Then headlights approached. A car slowed down. Amina stiffened, ready to run. But then the window rolled down and a warm-faced woman, maybe in her mid-40s, leaned out, her brow creased with concern. "Woman. My dear, are you all right? Where are your shoes? Why are you out here alone? Are you hurt? Please, get in. You look exhausted." Amina stepped back instinctively. Trust had become something she no longer recognized. But the woman's voice. Gentle, steady, the kind of tone that reminded her of safety she once knew. Amina hesitated. Then nodded softly. She opened the door and climbed in. The woman didn't pry. Didn't interrogate. She simply asked. "Woman. Do you want me to take you somewhere safe?" Amina nodded again, tears filling her eyes. The woman placed a soft hand on her arm, light enough not to startle her, firm enough to give comfort. The woman called ahead before driving off, informing the staff at a women's shelter that she was bringing someone in who needed urgent help. When they reached the shelter, Amina stepped out of the car slowly. She felt as if she had stepped into a different world, one with warm lights instead of harsh ones, soft voices instead of shouting, open doors instead of locked ones. Inside, she was greeted by women who moved gently, speaking in calm tones, guiding her to a bed in a quiet room. They gave her warm blankets and water, and nobody asked the kind of questions that forced her back into painful memories. They gave her space. They gave her silence. They gave her a moment to breathe. For the first time in a very, very long time. Amina lay down and slept. Not a fearful sleep. Not a half sleep where she listened for footsteps. Not a forced sleep after crying. A real one. A peaceful one. Her first in months. Morning light filtered into the small room, warm and gentle. When Amina opened her eyes, there was a brief moment, just a few seconds, where she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. She was safe. For now. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. A social worker entered, calm, respectful, carrying a notebook but no pressure. Social worker. "Good morning, Amina. I'm here to help, only at your pace. You're not obligated to share anything you're not ready to talk about." Amina nodded, surprised by the kindness. She had grown used to voices rising, questions being demands, decisions being taken away from her. This was different. Slowly, she spoke. Not everything. Not every detail. Just enough to be understood. The social worker listened, really listened, without interruption. Later, a doctor examined her. Her baby's heartbeat thumped strong and steady. Healthy. Unaffected by the stress, miraculously. For the first time, Amina smiled genuinely. But her peace lasted only a moment. Jamal began calling. First her number. Then unknown numbers. Then long voice notes filled with blame, excuses, tears, threats wrapped inside apologies. The shelter staff blocked every attempt to reach her. He called her family, presenting himself as the wounded husband confused about why she ran away. He twisted stories. Painted himself as the victim. Begged them to pressure her to come back. But Amina did not bend. She sat on the bed, holding her belly, whispering. "Amina. No more. Not for me. Not for this child. And for the first time, she chose herself. She chose safety. She chose a future. The fight for her freedom had just begun. And this time, she wasn't fighting alone. Legal battles are never easy, especially for someone who has lived in fear for so long. But with the help of the shelter's legal team, Amina found strength she never knew she had. The first step was documenting everything. Not the painful memories she didn't want to relive, but the patterns, the isolation, the controlling behavior, the evidence of financial manipulation, the saved messages, the witnesses who had seen her withdraw from the world. Every detail mattered. And the shelter staff made sure she never faced any of it alone. When the case reached court, Amina walked in with her head held high, not because she wasn't afraid, but because she refused to let fear steer her anymore. Inside the courtroom, Jamal's confidence faltered for the first time. Gone was the charming, well-spoken man the community admired. He tried to play the role of the injured husband, confused, heartbroken, betrayed. But the calm, factual presentation by the shelter's legal team slowly peeled back the layers of his performance. They showed the pattern of control. They showed how he managed her finances. They showed how her social connections mysteriously dissolved under his influence. They showed the subtle but dangerous emotional instability he directed toward her. And through it all, Amina sat silently. No breakdown. No anger. Just truth. Court officers watched her with respect. Some even nodded subtly as she spoke with quiet, unwavering honesty. The judge reviewed the evidence, the testimonies, the documented patterns, and in a firm, decisive voice, "Judge. Protection granted. Effective immediately. Mrs. Amina is not to be contacted, approached, or followed under any circumstances." The words sank into her heart like medicine. The first real sign that she had done the right thing. That her voice mattered. That the law stood beside her. A safe environment was arranged immediately. Shelter staff helped her move, reassured her, guided her. And at last, she filed for divorce. A step she once imagined she'd never have the courage to take. In the weeks that followed, Jamal's polished, admirable public image began to show cracks. People whispered. Neighbors noticed inconsistencies. Friends questioned past behaviors they once ignored. The mask he had worn so flawlessly for years finally began to crumble. When Amina exited the courthouse that final day, she paused on the stairs, closed her eyes, and drew a deep, steady breath. Freedom tasted like fresh air. Cool. Clean. Honest. For the first time, she felt it filling her lungs completely. 2 months later, on a gentle morning touched by sunlight, Amina held her newborn daughter for the first time. A small, warm, unbelievably perfect child. She named her Nur, meaning light. Because that was what she had been searching for all along. Nur's tiny fingers wrapped around hers, and in that moment, Amina felt life restart. Not from where it broke, but from somewhere wiser. Somewhere stronger. With support from the shelter, Amina secured temporary housing, a safe, quiet place where she could learn to breathe again. She began working part-time from home, writing small reports and managing online tasks for a local agency. The job was modest, but it was hers. It represented independence, stability, a future. Her mother, after hearing the truth at last, relocated temporarily to help care for the baby. The first night they stayed together, her mother told her, "Mother, you survived something heavy. But God does not forget the tears of His children. Your life will rise again." Day by day, piece by piece, Amina rebuilt her confidence. She started smiling more, sleeping more deeply, trusting herself more. Nur became her motivation. Her small reminder that even in the darkest nights, something beautiful can be born. Safety returned. Peace returned. Hope returned. And for the first time in far too long, Amina began imagining a future that did not frighten her. If you feel unsafe, please listen to me. Leaving is not weakness. Asking for help is not shameful. No matter what anyone told you, you deserve peace. You deserve protection. You deserve life. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can ever do is walk away before the darkness consumes you. Her story is not just a testimony of survival. It is a reminder. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes, it only whispers in the quiet moments when the world is asleep. Get up. Take the first step. And go. And for many, that whisper becomes the beginning of freedom.